Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about some of the important questions. So these are the questions which they have asked more frequently in the question paper. So first I have considered current electricity. Current electricity ಇಂದ ಯಾವ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸೊ ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಇದ್ದೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬಂದೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಫ್ರೀಕ್ವೆಂಟ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಯಾವುದಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ವೀಟ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನ್ ಬ್ರಿಡ್ಜ್. ಓಕೆ, ವೀಟ್ಸ್ಟರ್ನ್ ಬ್ರಿಡ್ಜ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಸ್ಡ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್, ಸೊ ಯು might get Wheatstone bridge this time as well. So this is one of the very important question. And then there is cells in series or parallel. That is also lengthy derivation, but very important derivation. They have asked a lot of time. So these two main important questions are 5 marks ali. These two are really important for 5 mark. Rest of them are, I'm not saying that the rest of the derivations are not important, they are also important, but at this point of the time these two questions are really important. So 2-3 marks alli ಏನು ಬರ್ಬೋದು ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದ? ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಿಸಿಟಿಯಿಂದ ದೇ ಮೈಟ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಯು ಓಮ್ಸ್ ಲಾ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಓಮ್ಸ್ ಲಾ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಅದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ದೇ ಮೈಟ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಯು ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಡೆಫಿನೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಮೊಬೈಲಿಟಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಡೆನ್ಸಿಟಿ ಆರ್ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆರ್ ರೆಸಿಸ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆರ್ ದ ರಿಲೇಷನ್ between conductivity resistivity or the relation between current density conductivity resistivity. So all such kind of questions they might ask you. So these things are really important from the chapter current electricity. Okay, so then there is one more chapter, that is electromagnetic waves. Electromagnetic waves in the hardly you will get 2 or 3 mark overall chapter alleya. So they might ask you, they will definitely ask you about the displacement current equation ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. Okay, and then they might ask you the applications of electromagnetic wave, x-ray ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, gamma ray ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, infrared ray ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ultraviolet rays ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು main ಆಗಿ. So they will ask the applications of these electromagnetic waves. Okay, so these are the some of the important questions. We'll move to the next chapters from where you will get most important questions. Okay, so the next important questions comes from moving charges and magnetism. Moving charges and magnetism in the you will not get any numericals. So basically you will get theory questions from moving charges and magnetism. So one definite 5 mark questions you will get from this chapter. So these two questions are most frequently they have asked in the question paper. So the first question is magnetic field due to circular loop, and the next is force per unit length between two straight parallel conductors carrying current. So along with the question, they might even ask you to define ampere, write down the SI unit of it. Okay, so these two questions are very important. Rest of the derivations are also important, but ಈ ಎರಡು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಏನಿದೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಲ ಅವ್ರು ಕೇಳಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಸೊ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟು questions, and then you will get 2 or 3 marks questions from this chapter as well. So those questions can be motion in magnetic field derivation ಆಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಆಂಪಿಯರ್ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಲಾ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು ನಿಮಗೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ದ ಕನ್ವರ್ಷನ್, ಗ್ಯಾಲೋನೋಮೀಟರ್ ಟು ಎಮಿಟರ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಗ್ಯಾಲೋನೋಮೀಟರ್ ಟು ವೋಲ್ಟ್ ಮೀಟರ್ ಕನ್ವರ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ಈಸಿ, ಸೊ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ಇಟ್. ಸೊ and it will really become easy, it will really help you in the exam. Okay, so these are some of the important questions from the chapter moving charges and magnetism. And then there is one more chapter, that is magnetism and matter. I have not considered any 5 mark question from this chapter so that it becomes easy for you. ತುಂಬ questions ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಏನು ಓದಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So I have considered only 2 or 3 marks questions here. Okay, so illinda they will ask you properties of magnetic field lines. Properties of magnetic field lines anta bandaga ಅದು ನಿಮಗೆ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸಿಗೂ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಅದು 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸಿಗೂ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ಲಿ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಆಸ್ಕ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟೀಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್, ಫೆರೋಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ ಆರ್ ಡಯಾಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಕ್ಕು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಅದು 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸಿಗೆ ಅಥವಾ 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸಿಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ 2 ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ತುಂಬ ಸಲ ಕೇಳಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸಮ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದೀಸ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ಸ್, ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಚಾರ್ಜಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ನೆಟಿಸಮ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ matter. We'll move to the next important questions. So the next important questions come from the chapter semiconductor electronics, because you will not get any numerical from this chapter again. So current electricity in the moving charges and magnetism in the semiconductor in the definitely compulsory you will get a 5-mark question. Okay, so definitely you will get to one compulsory question from these 3 chapters. So here in semiconductor you might get this question, this which they have asked again and again. So refined rectifier anta kodtare, and then they'll ask you to explain either full wave rectifier or they'll ask you to explain half wave rectifier. So idu definite question idde irutte, or else they might ask you to explain PN junction diode. PN junction diode ಒಂದನ್ನೇ 5 ಮಾರ್ಕಿಗೆ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ. So they might along with it they might ask you to give the difference between forward bias or reverse bias or any other P type, N type ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, extrinsic, intrinsic ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು. Since forward bias and reverse bias are related to PN junction diode, so along with PN junction diode, they might ask you forward bias and reverse bias. 2-3 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಈ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್ ಇಂದ, 2-3 marks ಅಲ್ಲಿ they might ask you P type, N type difference ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ extrinsic, intrinsic difference ಕೇಳಬಹುದು, or majority charge carriers ಯಾವುದು, minority charge carriers ಆಯಿತು ಯಾವುದು P type ಅಲ್ಲಿ, N type ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. Okay, these are some of the 2-3 marks questions from the chapter semiconductor electronics. One thing I would like to say is whenever they ask you about difference, okay, whenever you differ between the two things, whenever you distinguish between two things, don't write example as one of the difference. Okay, you will not get mark for that. So example can never be a difference. Okay, so don't write example as one of the difference. Okay, so we'll move to the next important questions here. Next important questions come from the chapter ray optics and optical instruments. So ray optics in the 5-mark questions ಬರೋದಾದರೆ either lens makers formula or refractive index of prism in ಇವೆರಡು ಡಿರೈವೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಬಂದೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೆಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಅ ನ್ಯೂಮರಿಕಲ್ ಫ್ರಾಮ್ ರೇ ಆಪ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಆಪ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೂಮೆಂಟ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್, ಯು ವಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಎನಿ 5-mark ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಚಾಪ್ಟರ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಟು ಡಿರೈವೇಷನ್ಸ್ really important, they are really important, but if there is a numerical from this chapter, you cannot expect these questions, okay, from this chapter. Okay, then 2-3 marks in ಬರೋದಾದರೆ ಏನು ಬರಬಹುದು, you will get critical angle definition, definite question it is, and then total internal reflection. A question on total internal reflection is must and should. They'll definitely ask a question on total internal reflection. Either they'll ask you to explain total internal reflection, or they'll ask you the conditions of total internal reflection. Okay, then there is loss of refraction, or they will ask you Snell's law. Okay, then there is optical instrument, they might ask you to draw microscope or reflecting telescope. So these are some of the 2 or 3 marks questions from the chapter ray optics and optical instruments which are important. Rest are also important, so these are a bit more important. Okay, so next is atom. If you have studied atom, from atom Bose postulate and de Broglie explanation of Bose postulate, ಇವೆರಡು ಟಾಪಿಕನ್ನು ಓದದೇ ಇರೋದು ಮರಿಬೇಡಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಇವೆರಡು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಓದಲೇಬೇಕಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್ ಟು ದ ಸಮ್ ಮೋರ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ come from the chapter electric charges and fields. So the 2 important 5-mark questions would be electric field for an electric dipole at a point on an equatorial line, and the next one is state Gauss law, expression for electric field due to an infinitely long straight uniformly charged wire. Okay, so these 2 are mostly asked questions from the chapter electric charges and fields. So again, if you are getting a numerical from this particular chapter, you will not get any 5-mark question from this chapter. If there is no numerical, you will definitely get one of these questions from this particular chapter. And then 2-3 marks question. 2-3 marks question ali they might ask you electric dipole moment, or properties of charges, or properties of electric field lines. ಕೂಲಮ್ಸ್ ಲಾ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಕೂಲಮ್ಸ್ ಲಾ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು, ಗಾಸ್ ಲಾನೇ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡು 2 or 3 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಕೂಲಮ್ಸ್ ಲಾ ವೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಫಾರ್ಮನ್ನು ಬರೀರಿ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡು ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ದರ್ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಚಾರ್ಜ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಚಾರ್ಜನ್ನು ಡ್ರಾ ಮಾಡಿ ತೋರ್ಸೋಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Okay, so you have to, when they ask you about field lines in case of a negative point charge or positive point charge, you need to draw and show it to them. Okay, so these are some of the important questions, not just in case. So in 2 days exam irodrinda I thought of giving some important questions here. So I hope you have studied everything. You don't need these important questions, but but to those students who have started now, so I hope it helps them. So here I have explained, I have given important questions according to chapters, because so most of the students questions kottaga ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಯಾವ ಚಾಪ್ಟ್ರಿಂದ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಯಾವ ಚಾಪ್ಟ್ರಿಂದ ಅಂತ ತಗೊಂಡು ಯಾವುದೋ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಗೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬರೆಯೋ ಚಾನ್ಸಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಐ ಥಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ questions according to the chapter so that it helps you to know the questions. Okay, so knowing the question is very very important when you are sitting in the examination hall and looking at the exam question paper. Okay, so all the best for all the students, and please follow the channel. Thank you.